Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked here on the channel. This is the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves, because if I could go back in time to fix all of this, I would. Today we're talking about Annalee Newitz's book, The Future of Another Timeline. This was a very long time ago now, but I believe I was sent this copy of this book for free for review. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I am going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible while still talking about the book. I think even if I told you everything that happens, this would still be a book worth reading, but if you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, click away now. I also highly recommend going and checking the content warnings for this book on Storygraph, which I will link below. This is quite a dark, quite an intense read. Yes, check them out, please. I don't want to be responsible for anything. Please check those out. This is a time travel-y science fiction book that came out in 2018? 2019, there we go, not as long ago as I thought, but pre-pandemic, which feels like 100 years ago. Annalee Newitz, who uses they-them pronouns, is a fiction and non-fiction author, as well as a journalist and podcast host. I've not encountered their journalism or their podcast in my time. I've only read their fiction work, but I'm really interested to see what their non-fiction is like. Intrigued. I'm going to pop this here. Their next fiction work is called Terraformers and it is out in 2023, and you can bet I'm going to be reading it. I'm actually going to pick this up again because I'm going to read you the blurb. Do you remember when we had the vote? The Future of Another Timeline is a breathtakingly original novel from Annalee Newitz, founding editor of IO9, about the lengths we'll go to make history. In a world that's just a step away from our own, time travel is possible, but war is brewing. A secret group is trying to destroy women's rights. If they succeed, only a small elite will have the power to shape the past, present, and future. Bam, bam, bam. Which is a really simple way of describing this book, which is far more complicated than you would think. Essentially, there are a lot of time travelers in this world. Time travel is possible, a lot of people do it. Not hundreds of people, not everyone, but there is a good chunk of people who time travel. And one of those groups is a group of women and non-binary people who want to get back to a timeline that they can remember where women had the right to abortion in the US. And yes, that's why I'm talking about content warnings around this. Please check those out, because yes, they are in a time where they can remember that time existed, but it is not the time that they are in now. And as they're trying to fix the timeline to get back to that place, or to get to that place, they are also encountering a group of men who are trying to erase the rights of women and non-binary people. And it's intense, and there's a lot of different time travel elements. We go to the past, we don't really go to the future, but we encounter it a little bit, and there's a lot going on. And in this, we're kind of following these different time travelers and seeing some of their past, seeing how they got to this place. It is that classic time travel book where everything is a little bit wibbly-wobbly. Where are we? Who are we? What has happened and what hasn't happened yet, especially when you're getting to resetting timelines. It's very tricky. One of the big things I like about this is, as much as this is tricky, wibbly-wobbly, everything, actually it is time travel without a lot of the faff. And if you've read enough books that feature time travel, you'll know one of the biggest difficulties for authors to do is to create time travel that makes sense, that doesn't completely destroy everything the moment you think about it too hard, but that also doesn't feel like it's full of rules, that you spend half the book setting up the rules. This one, it's sort of a little bit of a, don't worry about the science, this works. And there are some things that don't work, there are some things that go very wrong, but for the most part, you know, as a reader, what works and what doesn't. And in terms of how time travel works, you don't need to know the specifics, but you do know vaguely what's going on. It's the right balance for me. I think that's a big selling point. I have read some good time travel books, I've read some terrible time travel books. This is one of the good ones. If you are a person who really likes the science side of time travel and really wants to dig into the science and philosophy and all that stuff, this might not be that book for you, but I think it does what it needs to do in the time travel department. It's also a book that feels very inclusive. I don't think that should come as a surprise. It's one of the themes of Annalee Newitz's work and their identity. I don't think it will shock you that this book is inclusive, but it was nice for me to read a book that was about all of these difficult themes, that wasn't super cis-normative. I liked that, I appreciated it, I thought it was good. And I think that it's difficult because you are talking about history and what different language people had for things, and different historical prejudices, but it all kind of meshes together into a book that feels like thought went into it. Like with other things, my feeling is if it feels intentional, then, and it feels like you've sat and you've thought about it and you've gone, right, how am I going to word this if I'm talking to someone in the 18th century, for example? I just think it works well. And if you're looking for a book that does feature a lot of different gender identities and explores that, not in a huge amount of detail, but it is there, I would say this is a recommendation for you. And I think it's also the fact that the book acknowledges that fighting for women's rights and the rights of non-binary people and trans rights and all of the above, and beyond, is beneficial to all of us. It's not just a thing where it's like, we just want to help women. It's we want to help everyone, and let's see where we go from there. My last pro, I guess, I feel like I'm not talking about this book in a huge amount of detail, but it's because I kind of want you to encounter it for yourself, is I really like the way that the time travel and everything is structured. I like it's not even dual timeline, it's sort of like multiple different timelines. The book always sets up when you are and which person in that time you are. So as a person who quite often gets very confused by multiple POV books, especially across time, I never felt confused in this book, and that worked so well for me. I knew who I was following, I knew what they were doing, I knew what their goal was, I was here for it. And a book that could have been incredibly confusing for me was instead just a really enjoyable time, and amidst all of that you get those little historical details, you get those little time travel details. There's a lot going on, but it all makes complete sense to me. I will say that this book is very, very heavy. I've mentioned the content warnings a bunch of times, I'll mention them again. It's well worth mentioning. If you've read this author's work before, you'll know that's something that they don't shy away from, and in some ways, really appreciated that. Liked that it wasn't sanitized, liked that it was a book that went, hey, this is reality and it is bad, especially given that this was 2019 and things have really only got worse in reality from there. But obviously this is a very heavy topic, and it's a topic that's very close to home for some people, quite a lot of people I actually imagine. If this isn't a book that you can engage with right now, you don't have to. And I know that sounds stupid, but I think sometimes people get in their heads like, this book was important and deals with an important topic, so I have to read it. Some of us live in it, and you don't have to read it as well. So I think it is heavy, I think it is handled sensitively, I think it is a profoundly honest look at this. It doesn't sugarcoat it, nor does it make it feel like despair, voyeurism, sort of, aren't you sad? Look how sad you are. Yes, things are terrible, aren't they? It still feels empowering in that way that I love, but it doesn't shy away from the negatives as well. And I think potentially, I've said, I found it very straightforward, I didn't get too confused. I do think there could be some elements that would be a little bit convoluted for some. There's a lot of character stuff that gets a little bit complicated, and I think that's worth acknowledging in case you pick this up and you're like, Judith said this was going to be completely easy to read. It's not easy to read, both because of the topic and because it is wobbly, timey-wimey stuff as well. Let's talk about some comparisons before I give you my overall thoughts. Annalee Newitz's other book, Autonomous, is more about big pharma and intellectual property. It's fascinating, it's really well written. It does similar things to this in the heaviness department, but it's just taking like an idea and exploring it through a speculative lens. It's one of my favourite things to do. It's one of my favourite things that science fiction does, and yeah, it works really well. I would recommend it. I'd hold it up to you if I knew where it was on the shelves. I talked about it a few weeks ago, so I might as well talk about it again. Circe by Madeline Miller is another book that I think does. Things are rough for women in this particular time, in that case in history/mythology, but this book is still empowering in a way that Future of Another Timeline does. And I don't know if it's just that my brain has done the stupid thing, oh no, not stupid, the thing of collating two books that I read very close together that both had orange covers, and I'm like, they're so similar. So many similarities to them, and it's just orange women read at the same time. I don't know, but they feel similar to me, and I like recommending books, so recommended. Consider it recommended. And lastly, the other time travel book that I read recently that I need to do a reread of before I'm like wholeheartedly, yes, this is a really good read, but it's called The Psychology of Time Travel, and Katie and I did it as an audiobook on a road trip a year ago now, and it is where time travel is created in the 60s, and so all time travel infrastructure and bureaucracy is based on a 1960s idea of mental health, and caring for those who perhaps have less than stellar mental health. And it's very bleak in a lot of ways, but it's a really interesting book that plays a lot with foreshadowing and the amazing things you can do with time travel in a book. So yes, I would recommend that. I think I want to do a reread of it just to see that I didn't, do that thing where you ignorantly miss a huge chunk of something problematic in it. But I remember it being good, so complicated things. I can't keep a hard grasp on everything that I read one time in a car. So overall, do I recommend reading this book? For me personally, I found it was just that right level of, oh, this is really close to home, but it feels important. And the fact that it came out before a lot of stuff that has happened very recently, it felt very timely to read it at that point. I really felt like I was getting to engage with the topic on my own terms in my own time. I could put the book down when I wanted to. I think that I personally found it a really enjoyable read in the weirdest way. I think it's really compelling. It's a good story on top of that speculative exploring of ideas. And I would recommend it if you're in a place where you can read it. If you hate time travel books, I feel like it goes without saying, maybe don't read this one. It's not going to change your opinion on time travel. I know some people have very strong opinions, but for me personally, I love Annalee Newitz's way of seeing the world and way of creating a narrative, and I think this is well worth reading for that alone. Have you read this? Do you have plans to? Had this crossed your radar at all? Is it the first you're hearing about it? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow my social media and come hang out on Discord. All of that's linked below. We can have chill chats about books. Nothing makes me feel more loved and appreciated than my patrons over on Patreon who support the channel and make videos like this possible. If you'd like to join their number and get exclusive access to bonus content and early access to videos, that's linked down in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one.
There's gonna be some bloopers now.
Today we are talking about Annalee Newitz's. It's fine, Judith can put that out there. What am I doing?